people say that you need to trust the experts, you need to listen to the experts, and really all that is code language for you need to listen to the person that I want you to listen to, because only a moron would suggest that the only scientific or people that are in science that this has been their profession for decades. Only a moron will believe that when it comes to how people are handling the COVID-19 issue, it doesn't matter where they're at, but this idea of face coverings, constant face coverings, mask mandates, as well as being pro lockdown, to act like every single person is that's a doctor or a scientist is for that is false. And I don't think anybody should be surprised by that. But unfortunately, the government scientists have been able, and the public officials, as they call them, peddle these narratives that, okay, if it comes from them, that's the only way that it's legit. And of course, if you question anything it is that they say, well, you are anti-science. And the people that are scientific, or rather scientists or doctors that disagree with them, they think they should be ostracized. It goes to show that this is a religious kind of cling to the science, and the science it just means do what they want you to do. It's not actual legitimate science. It's not the ever going question, of trying to question your hypotheses. That's not what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with, we said it, therefore it must be true. So let's read this. And we talked about this in the last show, or the last segment, excuse me. And that's the Great Barrington Declaration. A lot of you probably have never heard of this, and I don't think I've mentioned it. I haven't covered it. I think this will be the first video where I covered it. But because it was mentioned when we talked about Jay Bhattacharya, I wanted to mention it here. But the Great Barrington Declaration is an infectious disease epidemiologist and public health scientist, or as it says, we have grave concerns about the damaging physical and mental health impacts of the prevailing COVID-19 policies and the recommended approach we call focused protection. So, in this declaration, there are literally hundreds, thousands more so, of people that are actual doctors who have signed this and signed this declaration, led by, of course, as we mentioned, Jay Bhattacharya, who is a physician, an epidemiologist, and a health economist. We've talked about that. He's one of the few that has that background in economics. You have Dr. Sunetra Gupta, Oxford professor. These are the people that kind of crafted this. They led to charge in this idea with expertise in immunology, vaccine development, and mathematical modeling of infectious diseases. You got Martin Kulldorff, professor of medicine at Harvard, a biostatistician, epidemiologist with expertise in detecting and monitoring infectious disease outbreaks and vaccine safety evaluations. So these are all the people, and the list is growing, obviously. Right here, they have some of the co-signers right here that are actual doctors, right? Medical and public health scientists and medical practitioners. This is a long list. Now y'all can go there, and it's called let's read some of it. The Great Barrington Declaration. The Great Barrington Declaration, an infectious disease. We already read that part. Let's read. Coming from both the left and the right and around the world, we have devoted our careers to protecting people. Current lockdown policies are producing devastating effects on short and long-term public health. The results, to name a few, include, which is important, lower childhood vaccination rates, worsening cardiovascular disease outcomes, fewer cancer screenings, and deteriorating mental health, leading to greater excess mortality in years to come, with the working class and younger members of society carrying the heaviest burden. Keeping students out of school is a grave injustice. Keeping these measures in place until a vaccine is available. And remember, this first came out, I believe, in October. So you got to also understand that. This is even before the vaccine. It will cause irreparable damage, with the underprivileged disproportionately harmed. Fortunately, our understanding of the virus is growing. We know that vulnerability to death from COVID-19 is more than 1,000-fold higher in the old and infirm than the young. Indeed, for children, COVID-19 is less dangerous than many other harms, including influenza. And, it's not been a whole lot of kids that have died or been sick from COVID-19. We know that. As immunity builds in the population, the risk of infection to all, including vulnerable, falls. We know, and this is what Nutwilkowski was saying, we know that all populations will eventually reach herd immunity, the point that the rate of new infections is stable, and that this can be assisted by, but not dependent upon, a vaccine. Our goal should therefore be to minimize mortality and social harm until we reach herd immunity. It's funny, Nowakowski got called crazy for basically saying that. When he said the immunity builds and the infection rate, or rather risk of infection of the vulnerable, will fall, the more, this is why he said that lockdowns was the worst possible thing that you can do. We cover this on his channel, Nowakowski. And he was saying that it's the worst thing you can do because you're not actually encouraging it to spread among the vulnerable population. This is why he said the kids not passing it around was a mistake, because now you're forcing them in hiding, right? So that doesn't get us to herd immunity any faster. Adopting measures to protect the vulnerable should be the central aim of public health responses, though it's not being, that. By way of example, nursing homes should have used staff with acquired immunity, which is not a bad idea, and perform frequent testing of other staff and all visitors. Staff rotation should be minimized. So it's basically, hey, this person has immunity. Now they work at that's a good idea, work at the nursing home. Retired people living at home should have groceries and other essentials delivered to their home. When possible, they should meet family members outside rather than inside. A comprehensive and detailed list of measures, including approaches to multi-generational households, can be implemented and is well within the scope of capability of health professionals. Those who are not vulnerable should immediately, and this is probably the most important part. This is being said back in October. Those who are not vulnerable should immediately be allowed to resume life as normal. Simple hygiene measures, such as hand washing and staying at home when sick, should be practiced by everyone to reduce herd immunity threshold. Schools and universities should be open for in-person teaching. Extracurricular activities such as sports should be resumed. Young, low-risk adults should work normally rather than from home. Restaurants and other businesses should open. Arts, music, sport, and other cultural activities should resume. People who are at risk may participate if they wish, while society as a whole enjoys the protection conferred upon the vulnerable by those who have built up the herd immunity. And this was crafted back in, like I said, October 2020. It's all, and these are experts, guys, the guys that we're supposed to listen to. They're just not the ones that they tell us we're supposed to listen to, because they saw the light, if you will. See, and I'm not an expert in this. Like, I haven't went. I've studied it, but not like them. And that especially that last part. See, I did a video. I can't remember if it was part of the show, but I know I did. There's a upload somewhere, and I discussed how y'all actually got people killed by treating us with a one size fits all. I told y'all that. And it's basically what that last portion is suggesting. If there was ever a population that you should have been protecting, it shouldn't have been me. This is why I kept doing those videos when we were monitoring the numbers, especially like in New York. I was like, it should have been me. I don't live in New York. I would never live in New York. But it's not folks like myself who are of healthy age, who are rather healthy. It's not me. If you had resources, you should have exhausted those options onto protecting, like the declaration says, the vulnerable, such as folks in the nursing home. Not us, not me, not the people that play sports, not the people that go at like schools. Those are not the people you need to be worried about. The folks that are healthy should have been from the get-go doing what we had been doing before. But you didn't listen. You fear-mongered instead. And you treated us with a one-size-fits-all. So now all we got is compounding other issues. You not only because rather you're exhausting all options trying to protect the entirety of the population instead of focusing on the people who are most vulnerable, not us. These rules should not apply to us, or rather not the rules shouldn't apply to us. It's that rather the protection and the resources for the protection we don't need that shit. The people that are most vulnerable need it, not us. But instead, you treated us all like we were sick and like we're all old. And because of that, it's going to have cascading health effects, mental effects, economic effects. That of which the experts that you tell us to listen to that work for the government will never, ever come to terms with and never, ever admit that they got that wrong, because they fear-mongered. And them fear-mongering and treating everybody with a one-size-fits-all got people killed. They don't want to admit that. Why are you worrying about healthy people? The numbers, we already seen them, man. We saw them coming out of the other countries in March. But especially when you got your own data, it's simply not that deadly of a virus, especially for people under 70. You're talking in IFRs, as I mentioned, which is on the Johnny Anitas' study, is on the WHO bulletin. You're talking 0.05 in terms of a mean. Why are you worried about us? And that's what sucks about this. They didn't listen. Instead, they didn't listen to us. They didn't listen to the experts who had a differing opinion and a differing position on this. Instead, they acted as if there's only one expert. It's Fauci. And I guess the colleagues, that Burks of the world, half of them don't even listen to their own rules anyway. But those are the experts, the public health officials that work for the government. But the other folks who have been warning us against this, that have as much and more, in a lot of cases, education in this field, had been warning you against that, and you did it anyway. And these fools try to put the blood on our hands. Say, well, you are against mask mandates and lockdown, therefore you got everybody killed. No, that's not what happened. You got people killed by treating everybody as if we're all 75 years, 80 years of age with comorbidities, when that simply wasn't the case.